Hi, it's Trial by Stone. Okay, so I am talking about today Werewolf of London. It is a kind of looked over werewolf movie from 1935. It is directed by Stuart Walker and stars Henry Hull. The makeup effects were done by Jack Pierce, who did not do the makeup effects. Actually, did he? Hold on. Um, actually, I think he did. He did do the makeup effects for Lon Chaney's The Wolfman, like 10 years later, or Lon Chaney Jr. Lon Chaney Jr.'s The Wolfman, which came out like 10 years after this, which is really interesting. This movie featured the first Hollywood mainstream film to feature a werewolf, which is really cool. Um, Henry Hull plays the eponymous. I don't know. He plays the he plays the werewolf of the film. I'm a big werewolf fan. I used to really be big in the werewolves. I used to hate vampires. I think I said about it before. Or I didn't hate them, but I just thought they were just goofy and kind of dumb. I think it was the whole Twilight thing that did that to me. But I've learned from my ways. Vampires are cool. But anyway, I was a big werewolf fan. Like werewolves over vampires. I was much more werewolves. Um, so I've had a long history with the werewolf character. Or I don't know. Yeah, character. I think they're cool. I've seen my favorite werewolf movie would be An American Werewolf in London. It's so good. Directed by John Landis, came out in 1981. Um, oh man, it is so good. The practical makeup effects by Rick. It wasn't Rick. Rick. Gosh darn it. I'm hate this. Rick. this part is not scripted. Rick Baker. That's his name. Didn't even have to look it up. I remembered it because I'm good. The practical makeup effects, which were done by Rick Baker in that movie, are fantastic. I think he actually, in according to my dad, I think he's the one who basically taught Rob Bottin uh, his like style and stuff, which is really cool because the Howling was the makeup effects for Rob Bottin were done in the Howling, and that's also known as one of the better werewolf movies. I haven't actually seen it. I am planning on it, and I would actually like to review it sometime. That'd be cool. But I've seen some of the makeup effects from it. I've seen some of the werewolves. They're really cool. Another one of my favorite werewolf movies would be Dog Soldiers by Neil Marshall. Dude, that movie's underrated. So cool. Check it out, please. It's great. Um, Anywho, so Werewolf in London is very this will be my thoughts on the movie. I think it's a good movie. It's not bad. It is the sixth movie in the Universal monster movie franchise. Right after Bride of Frankenstein, they did Werewolf of London, and it's interesting because I watched it with the I have the classic monsters, Universal Classic Monster, like 30 film Blu-ray collection. If I hope it, I think it has all of them that they did. I might be wrong, but I think it does, which is just so helpful and awesome, and gives me a way to watch literally all of them. I've been just kind of binging through them, but it's interesting if you they have their own individual Blu-ray cases. The Wolfman Collection Blu-ray case is much more focused on Lon Chaney Jr.'s Blu-ray or werewolf, which I mean it makes sense. He's the most famous werewolf, but like you never ever hear about Werewolf in London. It's always the Wolfman, or Wolfman meets Abbott Costello, or whatever. It's very it doesn't get a lot of love, which is really interesting because it's the first werewolf movie, first mainstream one at least. And it's not a bad movie. It's really interesting, especially if you like An American Werewolf in London, which is that I really do. Um, it really makes me think because I was reading some facts about American Werewolf, um, while I was watching Werewolf of London because I was like, this really feels like an American Werewolf in London, um, which makes sense because for one, they both have the same title. Um, Two, I know Landis was inspired by a lot of stuff. He originally did this film called Schlock, which is about this weird gorilla ape man who kidnaps this girl. I don't know. I want to watch it. I'm definitely gonna review it at some point. Um, but anyway, yeah, it feels very much like an American Werewolf in London. In fact, it starts very similarly to the to an American Werewolf in London, where you have two foreigners who are traversing um, this just other country. They're two Americans, or in this case, uh, Englishmen, traversing this foreign country, and they come in contact with this man who's like, they're like, hey, I'm a botanist, which is interesting because Henry Hull in this movie, he plays a botanist, which is cool. You don't he is very posh, and unlike some of the other Universal movies, he's not this. He is like a scientist, but he isn't like a mad scientist like Dr. Frankenstein or um, is Renfield a scientist? I don't remember. Um, Anywho, he's not this like mad scientist like some of the other characters in the Universal monster movies are. He's this like just this proper um, Englishman who's just doing research on plants. So he's looking for this famed plant. I presume it is wolfsbane. They don't ever outright call it that. I think they call it like a wolf's flower at one point, which isn't wolfsbane, but I think it pretty much is the same thing. And they come in contact with this guy, and they're like, "Hey, we're looking for this flower. Could you point us in the direction of it?" And they're like, and the guy's like, "Oh, that flower. That's associated with werewolfery, which is the term they use in this movie. They also call them lycanthropes, like you hear in like every werewolf movie. But werewolfery, never heard that before. That's a cool term. And he's like, yeah, you should not go towards that. That is very dangerous. And being a horror movie, they do. And this is a horror movie, which is really cool. There aren't many of so far from what I've watched of the Universal movies. They they can be either like horror drama, gothic horror, or kind of silly horror. Bride of Frankenstein, I would say, is more silly horror, which I might get flack for that if anyone watches this. I love Bride of Frankenstein. It falls under the more sillier side of things. Frankenstein is very horror-y and very gothic. Dracula is same way. The Mummy's like this love story horror thing, and Invisible Man is, I don't know what to call it. It's a different movie. I really love it for that, but it's very different. And this one is very different from the others too. It has a very different vibe, which is cool. But anyway, these two characters are similarly. They approach this dude. He's like, "Hey, don't do this." Like the two protagonists in American Werewolf in London do. They are they come in contact with these people, and they're like, "Hey, don't go on the moors. This is an American Werewolf in London," and they do. That's where they come in contact with a werewolf. So these two characters find this dude. He's like, "Hey, don't go to this flower." They do. Comes in contact with a werewolf. It's the same thing. It's really cool, and it really makes me think that John Landis was inspired by, or at least partially inspired by this film. Um, so the moving on, the makeup effects are pretty good for their time. It's interesting. There's specifically one scene, and it isn't even the werewolf, but there was this like they had this like camera video thing on like a thing, and they like turned it this way, and there was like they were watching like a camera. It was almost like they were watching TV, but they were filming like other people, and I was like, how did they do that? Because for one, it's 1935. I don't think TVs were around then, so that's a thing. Movies were just kind of becoming popular, um, like the early 20s, and yeah, so that's it's very interesting. It kind of really reminds me of some of the stuff they did in Citizen Kane, um, with a lot of the really intricate special effects, and same Bride of Frankenstein, where you have like the little people in the jars. It's really cool. I don't really know how they did that. The scene with the people, the TV screen thing on the weird stick, but yeah, that's a very cool effect for 1935. Um, I'd like to know how they did that. But yeah, this is a very, very cool movie. It's very cool to see. I think if you are a werewolf fan, it's pretty essential. You should definitely watch the first mainstream appearance of a werewolf. That's cool. That's just cool. I'm very happy I did. It's a cool movie. It's not bad. Worth a watch, I will say, if you're into older films, Universal monster movies. Um, yeah, it's a cool movie. I liked it. I'd probably give it like a 7.5, maybe an 8. 7.5, maybe an 8. I don't know. It's very short. It's like an hour and 16 minutes. I think it is a tad slow, which I mean, you could say that some of the just the Universal movies can be kind of slow at times, but this one feels especially kind of slow at times, and it doesn't really. The only thing that kind of saves it from those scenes are the comedy, because this movie is kind of funny too, which is interesting. Um, Especially the women, like it's really really weird. Like some of the older women were like punching each other and stuff. It was such an like a okay then sure movie uh, moment, but that was cool. Yeah, Werewolf of London is a very cool movie. Highly suggest watching it. So, yeah, this is a trial by Soon. Peace.